All right. Well, thank you guys. Welcome to Answers News on Monday, October 18th, 2021. And I got the date right. I'm so excited. I was a little nervous about that. All right. But welcome to Answers News, biblical commentary on social issues and scientific issues from a biblical worldview perspective. I am Brian Osborne, joined by Dr. Gabriella Haynes and Dr. Jennifer Rivera. And we also have a live studio audience. Will you guys clap again? Make sure the online audience knows that you're real. You're live. Nice. Lots of people here during the fall. I love it. Pretty day outside, not too hot,
it's really
not too
nice
cold.
today. It's
nice.
It
really is, yeah.
Sunny, beautiful.
And of course, we got Christmas time coming up fairly soon, so look on the website for more on that. But a couple of quick announcements before we dive into today's show, and that is first, we are hiring. If you want a job, please come on, all right? We have tons of opportunities via so many different areas, whether it's media, social media, computers, doing grounds work, speaking, teaching, so many opportunities. Check out our website online. You know about that, right, Jennifer?
I mean, what a fantastic, whoops, sorry, there we go. I said, what a fantastic place to work, too, where we actually pray for each other.
That's right.
You know, and it's just an amazing thing, and we pray to start our day, and we have such a sense of community here.
That's right.
It's just an amazing place to work, and I would definitely recommend if you're looking for that, even if you just want a part-time job, or even if you're looking for an overnight job. I actually have positions open right now in our programs department for the evening, so if you just want to get paid for sleeping a third of the time, that position is open.
I'm getting that
it's
job.
called seasonal evening position. So go online and check that out.
I don't sleep at home because of my kids.
See, look at that,
you
perfect.
go.
Just come.
Yes.
Every teenager just got excited at what you just said. I can sleep and get paid. That's incredible. I'm good at that.
Absolutely.
All right. So yeah, lots of jobs. Check out our website for more on that in so many different areas. So be sure you check that out. And it is a fantastic place to work. It really is for so many reasons. Also, another announcement very quickly, we have forensic exploration taking place fairly soon. And I think you know a little something about that as well.
I do. I'm super excited about this. We've had several requests from adults who've seen their kids thoroughly enjoy our educational programs. They said, well, when do we get to take part in it?
Yeah, that's one of the questions.
It is all the time. So we are launching our very first adult-only Explore program called Forensic Exploration. We're going to offer forensics first.
That's awesome.
Not that I'm partial, but I'm really excited about this. And so we're going to
But you're partial, but that's okay.
I am, yeah.
Dr. George, she was so excited when we were talking about that. I'm going to go and do it because I always wanted to learn more about it.
So it actually is going to involve a Friday evening and then all day Saturday. So you're going to learn lots of different forensic techniques. We're going to include a coffee bar for the adults the entire time we're in class. They get to solve a big case study on the last day. So that should be going live very soon, hopefully by the end of the month.
That's awesome. So you'll want to check that out for sure. And I bet it'll fill up pretty quickly. So be sure if you want to take part in that, sign up pretty quickly if you want to be a part of the new forensic exploration, which should be awesome for so many reasons. And do you play the CSI song? Who are you? As people walk in, does that happen at all?
That might be a good idea.
I'm just saying. All right. Anyway, old CSI song. Anyway, all right. Moving on now. Jumping into our first topic, our first headline. A little bit of fluff and stuff. Kind of something nice and just fluffy to get us warmed up. Ontario woman wakes up to meteorite landing on her pillow. So in British Columbia, a woman was awakened by a rude meteorite who crashed through her roof and landed on her pillow right beside of her. She said she vaguely remembers her dog barking for a moment, and then all of a sudden a huge explosion and debris all over her face. Evidently a meteorite, a real meteorite, had crashed through her roof, hit her pillow inches from her head. And they verified later on it was an actual meteorite.
I do think she got a little bit of a reality check from it.
Oh,
right?
Yeah, that's correct. At least she woke up. If it was my husband, I don't know.
That's true. Me too. My wife would say the same thing.
And the police came investigating. They said, well, maybe it's just a rock. I guess they had been doing construction maybe at a nearby canyon, but they investigated and there was no construction going on. So they did verify after analysis that it was, in fact, a meteorite.
That's a pretty extreme alarm clock. I'm just saying, you really are looking for something.
She says, the only other thing I can think of saying is life is precious and it could be gone at any moment. And how God is so gracious and merciful and took care of her in that situation. And we had a situation this week with the alert of the tornado and everything.
Oh, that's right.
And we got the message in our phone, but that day my husband and I, we crashed really early, and then we didn't see anything. I woke up and I heard a little bit of wind. I was like, oh, I think it's fine. I was so tired. And everybody was talking about, then you know what? The Bible says that God takes care of us when we sleep. And he definitely does. So.
The one thing I can say about this is that this took place in Canada, and Canada seems to be losing its mind. So this is fairly standard for Canada overall. This is my general takeaway. Meteorites can come through your house. But anyway, moving on, that's a little bit of fun. This is just crazy talk. The Chimera Challenge. So a headline reads, the ability to develop animals that have human organs could save the lives of people awaiting transplants, but has ethical issues that still need to be faced. So what is this? Well, it's been around for a little while, but a chimera is this. It's an animal composed of cells derived from both of more than one creature and one fertilized eggs. The name comes from the part lion, part goat, part serpent chimera of ancient mythology. And so basically, they're combining cells from multiple creatures to try to produce, in this case, animal or human parts, things like, maybe a kidney or something like that that you might need if yours is failing, to produce these things somehow through this methodology that could supposedly be good for humans as we have these transplants that we need that there's not enough of around the world today. So that's the general point of doing this. But there are a lot of details around it, and there are a lot of ethical issues when you get down to the details of what they're actually doing in this sort of research.
And they do talk about how there is a significant shortage in organs.
That's right.
The organ donors are down, and so they would talk about the number of people that are actually dying every day because they can't get the organ transplants they need. So the underlying drive behind this is to help find a way, right, to make organs that would be maybe viable for organ transplant. But the big question is, what is the line that's going to be drawn here? When do we, if we're going to take human cells and implant them into animals, at what point is it, how much of it is human? It's like we were saying earlier, what is the percentage? And no one really seems to know.
Yeah, which would depend a lot on definition on the group, because I was talking today about definitions and everything in my talk. Who was here in my talk? Woohoo!
Hey, they came back. Good on you. Yeah.
Yeah, thank you guys. And depends on the definition what is human. Of course, it's gonna depends on the worldview and all that. It's gonna be insane.
Well, here's a question in line with what you're saying. Why care about humans at all? I mean, but if evolution were true and we're just rearranged pond scum over time and we're just really bags of mostly water that one day kind of fizzle out and no longer exist, have no memory of our existence ever, why care about if one lives or dies based on they have a particular part that they need? Why not just let them die? They're the unfit in the evolutionary worldview.
Right.
The biblical worldview, we got a good reason for caring about humans because they're made in the image of the living God, each and every one. So from a biblical perspective, that's why we care. We want to see humans live healthy lives that they may flourish to God's glory. Biblical worldview, good answer to why we should care. Really, from the secular perspective, they have no good reason to even care about how humans are doing in this life. But then as we engage it, there's so many questions involved. I'll read one section from the long article, by the way. It took forever to read through it, but I'll read you one section from it, and that is this. They say that as we do this research, here comes a complication. As we apply these cells, for example, let's say you have a monkey and a human hybrid, multiple cells from each animal put together. And you take some human brain cells and apply them to the monkey brain cells. This could lead to some sort of cognition actually developing in the monkey-like creature where they gain a human-like cognition and self-awareness. So now they have a human-like thinking feasibly. That could be a problem, right? So a monkey with a human brain, think Planet of the Apes, they get machine guns, take over the world, it's going to be terrible. Don't want that to happen, right? That's not the real issue. But the real issue there really does come, are they thinking? If they can think, are they self-aware? If they're self-aware, do they have a soul? At what point are you transitioning from animal to human? And we're really blurring the lines of God's created kind. In Genesis chapter 1, it says 10 times that God made distinct kinds of plants and animals to reproduce according to their kinds. Dogs make dogs, cats, humans make humans according to our kind made in God's image. We're blurring those lines if we're not really careful with this.
Well, because they have evolutionary worldview, they think that monkeys, primates, they're related to humans. They're thinking this way that they can maybe try to make a monkey to become a primate, become a human or something like that. So that's the whole point, is they're just applying their worldview and trying to.
And they did that because, they've had a little bit more, I would say, success, they say, between sheep and goats, but they're in the same created kind.
Right.
And they talk about the
Rats
success between rats and mice, but, they're in the same created kind as well. So we would expect that cells would, react better if you're experimenting on creating organs within the same created kinds. So that's why they thought, oh, well, let's try a primate and human.
And the created kind and the taxonomic level, it's around family, can go a little bit higher in order and goes down a little bit in genus. But the idea is we know that created kinds in the taxonomy of order or family, they can reproduce and they're okay. And that's what is expected because that's what the Bible says that was going to happen.
And even the chimp-human hybrid, they said it lived, 19 days before. It was an embryo that was cultured under, was
in a lab
under careful, conditions, extending the life of it as long as possible, right? They're monitoring this thing 24/7.
And I'm 100% sure that they were making sure that this thing was very, very, very well cared.
Yes, they did not want it to
because they wanted their idea to success, but even then, it did not.
Right, and as we were saying, if it was just in nature, like if something strange like this, which wouldn't happen in nature because things only reproduce according to their kind, it only will happen in the lab. But there's no way it would have survived at all. So.
And based on that point, I want to read one more big problem that could result from this chimera research. The scientist says in the study, if such animals, chimeras, could make human sperm and eggs, there's a risk of a human embryo being conceived in an animal uterus. Although there's currently no blanket ban, there's a blanket ban on chimeric animals breeding. Current ban on this breeding now, probably not later on, things keep going. This could generate people or animals that look like humans being produced by other animals. They would have human-like skin, human-like faces, for example, which would be so disturbing on so many levels, not just superficially, but also when you think about the soul and the mind and what the thing actually is it human or not?
And they talk about crossing the line. But whose line? Who determines what that line is? And,
That's right.
And really, if you think about, they've already crossed that line, right? When you look at some of the researches in this article.
And there are a lot of questions involved with this research, and we don't have all the answers. Nobody does at this particular point. What we would encourage people to do from a biblical worldview, as you engage those questions, start from a biblical foundation. We use a biblical worldview, biblical authority, biblical truth to guide our thinking as we engage this issue, not secular presuppositions. So we encourage that. But moving away from the chimera, to YouTube, basically the same thing. All right. Anyway, so YouTube and Google make huge decision to stop monetizing climate change deniers on their platform. So in other words, if you have a YouTube channel, if you do stuff on Google and you're using those platforms to make money, to sell revenue, to sell ads, basically to make revenue for yourself, then they're going to take that away from you. You can no longer make money if you say something they disagree with in regards to climate change.
And they've outlined 3 areas that they said they're specifically going to target, and that's if you claim climate change is a hoax, if you claim denying long-term trends show global climate is actually warming, and claims denying that greenhouse gas emissions or human activity contribute to climate change. Any one of the 3 is going to flag you, basically, for the censorship that YouTube is
the reason
imposing.
that they're doing that is because they believe that it's well-established scientific consensus that all about global climate change and everything. But, this is a fallacy because it's not because of scientific consensus, which is not true, but let's grant that it's a scientific consensus. That's a fallacy because it's not because they think that it's right. Right is right in itself, not because someone else is saying that is right.
That's right.
So that's here just like a logical fallacy. It sounds and look right, but it's not. That's a big problem. And then when you go and talk about eugenics, it was a scientific consensus too. Back in 1920?
Late 1800s.
Around late 1800s.
Yes.
Right.
Yeah.
That was a scientific consensus too.
It was.
Just like destroy everybody, that it's inferior, not capable of doing things, and that's okay. And it was a scientific consensus. Yeah. So, that's a big problem when you use this idea. And the thing is, the biggest greenhouse is water vapor.
Water vapor, yeah. And so what they're doing, basically, the secular argument for climate change is really based on secular assumptions about the past, including ideas of long periods of time, billions of years, secular view of where we came from, both as a planet and as a human species over time, over long periods. It assumes there's been these long periods of stable climates in the past, so we're seeing rapid changes today in comparison. Humans are causing it because we've been around most recently. Some other assumptions are built into it based on an evolutionary worldview. And so you have these secular assumptions that interpret present-day observations that get their very wrong conclusions about the past, present, and the future in this particular case. And so the data they really present as proof for climate change is actually an interpretation based on secular ideas, not actual, tangible, touchable science in a real sense. So got to keep that in mind. You mentioned the appeal to authority or appeal to the majority. They'll claim the majority of scientists believe this, but if the majority says it's true, doesn't make it true by definition, right?
And
what happened in Germany?
You know
right?
what?
Yeah.
Something amazing is that, climate does change.
Oh,
it does, absolutely.
It's going to be colder one year. It's going to be warmer, but God gives us a promise in Genesis.
That's
he
right.
says, the seasons and harvest, and it's never going to cease until the end comes.
Right.
So we can be confident that it's going to be okay.
The Bible describes radical climate change at the time of the flood, where God sent the flood and wrecked this world, destroyed the world. We have a wrecked world post-flood. That flood wrecked the environment and wrecked the climate. That was true climate change. And by the way, the original climate created by God was a perfect climate. And then man sinned, bringing death and the curse into this world. So at that point, technically you can blame man for climate change. Right? When we sinned, it changed everything.
Yeah, Ice Age is a result of the flood. So because of everything that happened during the flood, we have the Ice Age around a couple hundreds after
that,
the flood. And here it says, ads and monetization will still be allowed to run alongside other climate-related topics like public debates on climate policy, impacts of climate change, and new research around the issue, but only the ones that agree with them. Because if anything else comes up that does not agree with them, oh, I'm sorry, nope, not with us.
And we've got whole video presentations by PhD scientists dealing with climate change. You can check out on answers.tv or on YouTube or something like that. We have books that deal with the issue in much more detail. I have a chapter on climate change in my book on quick answers to social issues. We cover the issue in detail in so many different ways. The point here is for this, though, for this particular article, these people who have they have control of one of the major flows of information in our culture today. They're determining what you can and cannot hear based on their own secular worldview. They're controlling the exchange of information. And when you start limiting the flow of information, you start controlling that, you get tyranny. I forget who said it, but someone said if you take away the free press and the press only says what the government tells them to say, that's a mechanism for tyranny, to control what you're actually hearing, to control what you actually do as a result of what you are hearing. And so this is really kind of what we're pointing to here. They're really doing that. And right now they're just shutting down your ability to make money if you give those ideas. How long before they shut you out completely? Like Facebook has done in numerous cases. They won't let you speak at
Instagram
all
has
if you disagree with their particular viewpoint on whatever issue, climate change, whatever. All right, moving on. It only gets worse from here, by the way. All right, so Superman, now bisexual. New author for a new Superman series says, we don't need another straight white savior. And so basically, this is the evolution of the comics of Superman. And of course, everybody knows who Superman is, and this is why it's such a big deal in the LGBTQ plus community. And basically, they hired a guy to write this new Superman comic. And this Superman comic is not Superman, it's Superman's son. I think his name is John Kent in the comics.
I guess named after Superman's father,
Jonathan
Kent.
Yeah. Exactly right. And so you have John Kent. He's the new Superman, kind of like Superboy growing up, basically. And this John Kent falls in love, basically, with a reporter. Kind of that classical story, Superman and Lois Lane. But this time, this is John Kent and another reporter, but this is a male reporter. And they're going to exchange their first kiss in issue number 5 of the brand new Superman. And this is a grand just moment for those in the LGBTQ plus transgender ideology movement. The author of the new series says this: over the years in this industry, it probably won't surprise you to hear that I've had queer characters and storylines rejected. I felt like I was letting down people I loved every time this happened. But we are in a very different and much more welcome place today than we were 10 years ago or 5 years ago. And he's exactly right. The climate in our culture today is right for it, just pushing this agenda no matter what avenue you're looking at, including comics.
What I found funny is they say you could visualize how it could pan in the future when the most powerful man in the world is part of the LGBT community. The most powerful man in the world?
Yeah.
He's not real.
Yeah.
He's just fiction.
Yeah.
I mean, they try to, portray him as like this is a huge moment for somebody that's real.
Exist.
He doesn't exist, though. Superman's not real. It's just a fictional character, and his son now is just making these choices that are written for him,
right,
by the cultural agenda.
He's living in a simulation, by the way.
He is living by a simulation.
Right.
Talk about that.
We're going to be talking about this, in a video game.
And what you're really seeing here, and you guys know this is an effort by those who love this ideology, who embrace this worldview. They want to make it normative. They want to make this the new standard for reality. That's really just, gay relationships. That's just normal and good, just like a heterosexual relationship. There's no different here. Gay marriage is the same thing as real marriage. There's no difference here. Just make it normative. Actually, one of the authors says this, that they're so happy that people are responding well in their minds to what they're saying, but on the other hand, they're hoping that this kind of thing in the future will not be seen as a big deal. hoping in the future that if someone comes out as gay, no matter who it is, doesn't matter because it's just normal, it's good.
That's what they're
right,
trying.
just like
They're
else.
trying. They push the idea because, as you said, they want to make it easy for the eyes and get something that is just normal and normal.
And that's powerful because you push it on kids in particular who are reading comics. All right, probably not us for the most part.
I don't know. I wonder,
right?
does anybody really read comics anymore? I mean, I guess they
Sure.
do.
Maybe,
I mean,
or even web comics. You
I
might
think
find it
people
online
probably
or
watch
something
the
like
movies that they make from
Right.
the comics more than they're reading comics.
Yeah, but kids love
That's true.
superheroes. You
They
know,
do.
they love
Absolutely.
superheroes
They love the
and they
heroes.
love everything about it, and that's of course just trying to target the kids.
And so, as we often say, no matter what you're watching, no matter what you're reading, everything communicates a worldview. Nothing is neutral. Either it's communicating true, real biblical things or anti-biblical things at the core. And so we need to equip ourselves and definitely our kids and our grandkids under our care to analyze things critically and biblically as they go through it and have a good biblical understanding and be able to pull out what's real and what's not.
And Superman's not the first one. We covered the article,
that's right.
what was it, a couple months ago when Batman and Robin was supposed to be coming out of the closet.
Yeah, Robin had to be first, right?
Yeah,
You got to work
Robin
your way
had
up
to
to
be first.
Superman. He can't be the first one. Then you get
Yeah.
Robin in there. Okay. All right. Moving on from there, this is actually better than that. It's just kind of science stuff. But hundreds of three-eyed dinosaur shrimp emerged from Arizona monsoon. I just love that title.
I know.
That's a fun title
That's
on
kind
so
of what
many
they look
levels.
like, though.
All right. But basically, following a torrential downpour over northern Arizona, hundreds of bizarre prehistoric, no such thing as prehistory, history from the beginning, and the beginning got said, but anyway, hundreds of prehistoric critters emerged from tiny eggs and began swimming around in a temporary lake on a desert landscape, according to officials over in this area. So these creatures they're called triops. They look like mini horseshoe crabs with 3 eyes. So instead of cyclops, 1 eye, triops, 3 eyes, I would guess. And their eggs can lie dormant for decades in a desert until rainfall hits them and creates the atmosphere for them to actually hatch and mature and to procreate and go from there. And so you know a lot about these because...
I do, because you can actually buy kits from like Smithsonian Magazine and other science magazines, kind of like you can the butterflies when you order the larvae and they send it to you and they will eventually pupate and turn into a butterfly.
Yeah.
You can do this with triops too. So when my girls were young, we had the triops kit. All you get is the sand, literally, and literally you add water, and within a couple days you have triops, and then you let it dry out. And so my father actually took the kit, and then for years he has brought them back every summer when my nephews come to visit, and there's even been spans of 5 to 7 years when it hasn't even been touched. All you do is add water because they've laid the eggs, and sure enough, you get a new batch of triops. So it's pretty neat. I highly encourage you to get the kit and just watch. They're really interesting.
That's weird. I wouldn't buy that thing.
Yeah, they're filter feeders, so every time they take in food, they immediately spit stuff out. They're really interesting to watch, and they're not very big. So
Well, we just did the whole ant farm thing, buy the little ant farm, the hill,
the same
put
idea,
the dirt in there, and the ants stick through it, watch it happen over time. That's a whole new level, though.
Yeah.
Now, by the way, when you put water with the triops, do you always get triops?
You always get triops.
It's always the same thing.
Yeah.
And they kind of talk about that here.
Right.
They are insisting that they evolved, right, over millions of years, but then they say they have changed, but the outward appearance of them is very similar to what they were millions of years ago.
Well, yeah, so just so you know, they are called dinosaur shrimp because they supposedly began their existence with dinosaurs or even before dinosaurs 400 million years ago. They were with them for a very long time. So we find them in the fossil record and we find them today, and their modern day counterparts look suspiciously like their ancient ancestors. Not much change at all. And sometimes you call that a living fossil. When you find something alive today, it looks like the ancient counterpart. They look very much the same, sometimes called a living fossil.
Well,
but they want to push back very hard on that, as Jennifer was saying, because no, this can't be a living fossil. Why? They've changed. This author, the scientist, is adamant. They've changed. They evolved. They just happen to look the same.
Yeah, but they change.
But they change.
They change, yep.
Yeah, trust me, this is true.
Because evolution must be true. That's
Right,
kind of the
yeah.
grand narrative here.
Yeah.
No, maybe that might be
And we would
appealing to
expect to
genetic
see
things.
minor changes within species,
Right,
because God put
exactly
that
right.
variation there, and we see that within species
Which
today
is,
that we can
again,
observe.
here, this word evolve, it's equivocation, fallacy. It's,
That's
again, a logical fallacy. They're using this word trying to communicate one thing that actually did not happen, because this thing is not becoming anything else. It's reproducing in their kind.
That's right.
So there's nothing changing there.
You can even leave it dormant for 10 years, pour water on it, and you get triops.
Which is what's so cool about that you were saying about the
Yeah,
flood.
that's one of the things that is cool, because sometimes people ask me like, so they didn't get this, they didn't put this is kind of animal like invertebrates inside of the ark. So for example, how did they survive? So this thing here, it could just be there, And then when the water came back after the flood and everything dried out, they were back. So that happens with wasps. Wasps, and they lay eggs in trees. They can stay inside of the trees for like 4 or 5 years. So there's no problem for a lot of invertebrates, a lot of insects to do things like that during the flood and survive. So that's not a problem at all.
Very cool.
It is pretty awesome.
At least it's science and not Superman going gay. That's a lot better. All right. Moving on. Earliest evidence yet of huge hippos in Britain. And you heard that correctly. It's not a typo. So paleobiologists have unearthed the earliest evidence yet of hippos in the UK. Excavations at Westbury Cave in Somerset have uncovered a 1,000,000-year-old hippo. Of course, that date's wrong, but a 1,000,000-year-old hippo tooth, which shows the animal roamed Britain much earlier than previously thought. And so these hippos were huge, weighing over 3 tons, bigger than modern-day African hippos, and part of the hippo kind. And basically, they demonstrate that the climate in the UK was different in the past that made it possible for hippos to migrate over long distances. And so we expect this in the biblical worldview, but of course, in their worldview, this is all just a grand revelation.
And we see a lot of larger animals. We see that in our, during the Ice Age.
Right.
They would had to have been larger to survive the harsher climate we would have seen after the flood. And we have a great exhibit on that at our Ark Encounter, where we talk about some of the fossils that they found of these large animals that would have existed a few hundred years ago.
And so we expect bigger animals in the past. We expect different climates in the past, post-flood. Ice age taking place, lots of rain because of warm oceans post-flood, causing a lot more wet environments, leading so hippos can do this sort of thing and migrate around the world. And of course, the time frame is way off. They're assuming secular assumptions and secular time frames. We're going to assume the biblical worldview, and the data will actually back that up in the long run. But interesting find, and it's cool to see the hippos were even in the UK. It's kind of a weird thought, but not there today. That was an easy one. Let's go on to the next one. Let's go to Lego. I really don't want to talk about this, but we will anyway. So Lego announces plans to remove gender stereotypes from toys following global survey. So Lego announced Monday, when this article was posted, that the company will work to remove gender stereotypes from its toys following this global study that shows how creative play is gendered. So in other words, if you have kids, you know this to be true. Typically, boys play with boy stuff in general, girls more with girl stuff. I've got a son who's 7, my daughter Macy is 3. They're both awesome, gorgeous kids, and that's how it tends to play out. Ian's going to grab stuff that he can blow stuff up with and shoot guns with and create stuff and build Legos. He'll spend hours creating these awesome Lego creations and doing sort of things. My daughter Macy, who is 3, she'll do some of that stuff, but her primary focus will be the babies and the baby dolls and doing hair. So, just
and as we were saying, you can work in a church nursery, not even know the kids, not even know the children, and they will come into that nursery. I've watched it over and over again, under 2 years old.
That's right.
And the boys will immediately go to the trucks and cars, and the girls will immediately go to the kitchen and the dishes and the baby dolls.
Yep, that's what we see.
That's without any direct influence. They're just naturally drawn to those toys.
And the argument goes that they're doing that today, not because that's the way God has made them and wired them according to the gender in which He created them. They're saying, no. Kids do that because they're getting all these pressure from their parents and from their environment around them, society that's forcing them to conform to these gender roles. And that's why boys go to the boy stuff and girls go to the girl stuff. They definitely address the parental component
here and try to they call it the parental imprint in the lives of the children.
One thing that I was thinking, I talk about this in my lecture this morning, is you can have any result depending on the method that you use.
That's right.
So they're changing all that because a survey of almost, guess what, 7,000 people. In the whole world, 7,000 people. If you do a survey with 70,000, you're probably going to get something different.
That's right.
Right? So the thing is, they want to do, and they're just kind of using this survey.
And you also have to look at who wrote the survey. Well,
that's right.
Who wrote the survey is the Gina Davis Institute on Gender in Media.
So who they target.
The questions are going to be targeted to a certain answer.
Yes, and for some group of people, they're not going to go to a church and ask those questions. Of course not. And one thing that I just thought, I was reading, and I thought it was funny. They said, we don't use gender segmentation, and we test all products with boys and girls, just as you can only shop for Lego products by patient point and not gender. Oh, they're talking about they don't want anything with gender, but they test everything with boys and girls.
Yeah.
It's a good point. Yeah, it's a very good point.
So, this is just... That's just crazy.
And by the way, the Gina Davis Institute, that is Gina Davis from A League of Their Own. If you remember that actress, that's who she is. And of course, she's kind of on this gender ideology, secular bandwagon, advocating for these things. And so, as you mentioned, she has this whole worldview that says, okay, everything is skewed. Our society is broken. It's systemically broken by oppression through males, and et cetera, and so forth. So it's broken. We got to actually find data to confirm our starting point, most likely. So it's not only the sample size being very low, but also who's doing the sampling, as you mentioned already, which is a really big deal.
They talk about, I'm not sure if we covered this on Answers News, but it was on the California law where they're going to try and make all the shopping aisles in the stores for children they call non-binary.
That's right.
And it's like,
I'm
not sure what that's going to look like. I can't imagine.
I've got a prediction. So you can mix up the toys all you want at Walmart, mix up the aisles all you want. I predict this, that 99.9% of the boys and girls who go into the store, the boys will go to the boy stuff, and the girls will go to the girl stuff.
Yep.
Why? Because that's how God has made us.
They say we provide gender-neutral toys. That's what they want in California. They using the word neutral because they do know that there's only boys and girls. So that's why they're not using anything else. They're just like, oh, let's do it neutral. Let's do non-binary. Why binary? Why two? Because there are only two. So themselves, they look like fools the way that they write things.
They're contradicting themselves.
And they think because they're contradicting themselves all the time. All the time.
Hey, but you know what? That's okay, Gabriella, because we're living in a simulation,
it's
not the real
real
world after all.
All of everything we've talked about today is
Look
not
at that
real.
segue. Man, I feel excited about
My
that.
husband would love that.
So, last article for the day.
I think I saw this in a movie.
I think you might
I
have.
did.
Oh, yeah. What are the odds we're living in a computer simulation? Cue Neo and the music and the Matrix and all that sort of great stuff. So this is a very popular idea that we as humans, we're not really real, but we're living in a simulation. That's a computer simulation. Looks really real, tastes really real, but it's really not.
Indistinguishable from reality.
You can't tell the difference.
You can't tell the difference. You don't even know that you're in a simulation.
You know what I would like to ask Musk, what's his name?
Elon Musk, the founder of Tesla.
Elon Musk. What I would love to ask him is like, Elon Musk, give me all your money. Don't worry, this is just a simulation.
That's right.
Yeah.
I think it's a great idea.
I think
Give it
to
Answers in Genesis as we can.
I would just like a free trip on his spaceship.
Right.
Great.
I know. How about that?
That'd be awesome.
Yeah, so the basic idea is that many people are buying into the idea that we live in a simulation, that this is not reality per se, but it's just what we perceive to be reality. This simulation was created, who knows, maybe by aliens, maybe by our very distant descendants who have, in the future, tens of thousands of years from now, have advanced so far in their technology. They have swaths amounts of computing power that we can't fathom. They can generate this whole simulation where our consciousness can live and dwell, and they can actually watch human evolution unfold, like where it led up to them. And so really just kind of playing this out. And really, in a sense, they're the new creator gods. And it's interesting when you get to, it's kind of a long article, and it's very esoteric in some ways, but really, it gets down to, it says it gives people who don't believe in God a way to ask these sort of God-sized questions. So if you don't think there is a God, but you think you're living in a simulation, you can ask those sort of questions like, okay, who's the creator? Why do you make it this way? Why do you allow us to experience things like death and suffering? Why do you make broccoli? I mean, what's that good for? Just kidding, right? But why do you make it this way? And then what happens when we die? Is there something beyond our existence here? And what you really see with this whole question is the imprint of God's image on humanity. We are made in God's image. He set eternity in our hearts. And so even if you rail against God and reject him, you still have those very same questions because it's imprinted in you because you're made in his image. So they're still trying to deal with those questions.
Yeah, but I do agree with this one part where she says it'd be great if we could replicate, if the virtual or simulated person could replicate herself to work many jobs at once.
Ooh,
wouldn't that be helpful?
That would
and then
be
after
helpful.
she completes a job, then the copy might choose to delete herself.
Oh,
see, wouldn't that be amazing if we could literally just simulate ourselves? Imagine what we get done at home.
Oh, yeah.
It'd be awesome.
Well, one thing that Elon Musk said, citing the speed with which video games are improving, he suggests that development of simulations indistinguishable from reality was inevitable. It's interesting he's using that it's so inevitable, but he's still making a distinguish between reality and video game because he does know what reality is. You can play, no puns intended
Good
here.
on you.
You can play as much as you want, but you do know reality because God put reality eternal all in our mind, in our heart. So the definition, when you put your definition based on man's word,
right.
where the man is the authority, that's the kind of crazy thing that you come up with, because they don't have anything else to. They don't want to deal with the situation of God.
Well, like you're saying, it boils down to this: who defines what reality is? Either God does or man. And of course, only God does so rightly. According to God and His actual creation, He made us in His image. We all descend from Adam. We're all sinners by nature and consequently by choice, and we all need saving through the last Adam, Jesus Christ. And that's the eternal reality we all need to come to grips with. Amen?
Amen.
You guys have been a great audience. It's the end for our show. Talk to you later on. Have a good day. See you guys.